Upanishad, sir.
Yes, so the Taittiriya Upanishad has basically three parts. The first part is dealing with the education system, the Vedic education system and the convocation address, which I will be covering primarily here. And the second part will be dealing with the conversations between Prabhu and Varuna on the questions of Ananda, levels of Ananda. And the third part will be dealing with the 5 levels of consciousness or 5 levels of reality, Brahman. So first we will go into the education system. Now we all know that today education system is English oriented. In 1817, the British government passed an order that all education should be in English. And any education in Sanskrit or Telugu or Tamil or any other language is illegal and not recognized. So as a result, we all become Englishmen and women partly or fully. That's what Macaulay envisaged. But the ancient Indian education system was quite different from the present modern education system. It was based on a Guru Shishya Parampara of Veda Pathshalas and Veda Gurukulas. I have visited many such, I have given many lectures, where the students are taught the chanting of the Vedas and also the meaning, and along with the grammar and etymology and so on. So for something like a minimum 12 years and maximum some 25 years, they'll be staying in the Gurukula and they'll be orally learning practically anything and everything under the Vedas themselves and Vedangas, the Upavedas, and also the Upangas, and also Darshanas, and other words, Shastras, 6 Shastras. So, and of course, higher education was from Kasi and other universities like Vikramshila, Nalanda. So people used to go there to Kasi and pick up highest levels of education, something like our IITs and doctorates and MTechs and so on. In those days, in their terminology of the education system. So the education system was not materialistic alone as it is today. Today, the education system got corrupted by commercialization, by reservations, by all kinds of things happening, and the poorer and poorer quality of the students and poorer quality of the teachers. Apart from the fact that the present education system has no interest in developing the moral personality traits, ethical values, or the character building of the students involved. Now, the important point I would like to highlight in Taittiriya Upanishad, of course, it's about 200 pages. You can read it yourself. I'm carrying this book of Ramakrishna Math, Shankaracharya's commentary in English. So I'll be only highlighting, focusing on major topics, which I mentioned 3 major topics. So the first topic is education system and the convocation address given at the end of the education system when the students are leaving the institute, which is a residential institute under the pupillage, tutelage, and personal presence of the teachers. Each guru had some half a dozen or less students attached to him in that house, in his own house, and they live there from morning waking 4 o'clock up to night 10 o'clock when they sleep. All activities are done under the control and guidance and coordination of the teacher. Mostly it is chanting of the Vedas, the 4 Vedas, and in addition they'll be learning the grammar, Siksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirupta, Chanda, Jyotish, and these are the Vedangas. And then they'll be learning the Upangas, which are the Darshanas, Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaiseshika, Yoga, Mimamsa, Vedanta. So all these subjects they'll be learning. And the Upavedas like Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, Gandharva also they may be learning, depending on the specialization. This is about the Vedic education institutions, which are residential, and they are long term for minimum 12 years and going up to 20. And they existed all over the country. there was a survey done which showed something like some 4 lakh institutions in the whole country. And apart from this, there were village schools which did not teach Vedas, but they taught basics, what is called Bala Siksha. And that contained the 3 R's and the basic skills and basic arithmetic and basic knowledge of medicine, basic astronomy, basic metal, everything basic. As a result of which the vocational education was more emphasized through the caste system. The child born to a particular professional will be taught that particular profession, the skills right from the childhood or babyhood. And in addition to the basic education given in the village level. There was no illiteracy whatsoever because there was no English education. It was all local language, their own mother tongue. And then, of course, Sanskrit, which is the interlingua of the entire country and the entire globe at that time. So this system was going on wonderfully for a very long time. Dharmapal wrote a book called The Beautiful Tree, which was destroyed by the British colonial policy of introducing education so as to produce clerks from India. My own great-grandfather was a great Vedic scholar. He had something like a Ved Pathshala in Kullur village near Tenali. And he was given 100 acres of fertile land by the king of at that time, the local king, the Vasireddy Venkata Naidu. And then his sons were told to study English education because by then English became the lingua franca and the official language, and Sanskrit and Telugu or Hindi education was banned. So as a result, all my grandfather and his brothers all went into English education. My grandfather was the first BA around 1870 or so, or in 1900. And this kind of a thing, the transition took place not only in my family, but in all of our families. And we all became English-speaking country. Now, in the process, the British didn't have any interest in reviving the ancient wisdom or the Vedic knowledge. They, in fact, wanted to cut it off. They closed down Ved Pathshalas, they closed down Ayurveda Pathshalas, Ayurveda medical schools. They opened English schools, they opened allopathy medical schools. And they have even indulged in violence. And apart from this, they have attacked the professional skills. They have cut the fingers of weavers who could produce a sari within a matchbox. It could be packed. So that kind of thing, all kinds of horrible things British have done. And at the same time, they have transferred knowledge from our tradition into England, whether it is surgery or whether it is agriculture or whether it is, you name it. Having transferred the knowledge, both the professional knowledge, the vocational knowledge, and the manuscripts, and the scholars too, and all accumulated in British Museum Library and various other, libraries in London, apart from Germany. Germany was competition to British during the Second World War. So Germans came and kidnapped many of our scholars, even in our own families, and they have smuggled out thousands and thousands of manuscripts, which are there even today in German libraries. And you can find them in Oxford, you can find them in every big institute and center and museum in England and Germany. So they have exploited the knowledge from it extensively, and they have developed modern science and technology. At the same time, they suppressed the education system in India. I'm not going into the details of that process of suppressing the education system and resulting in the destruction of the Indian education system, Indian economy, Indian development, Indian nationhood, all the tremendous damage, irreparable damage the British have done through their education system being imposed on us. Now, the important point I'm trying to emphasize is that even today, if you look at the IITs also, or the universities, or even the higher secondary education, or any graduate education, or even school education, you'll find something very conspicuously absent. Conspicuous by absence is the moral and ethical instruction. So we are developing robots or criminals or vagabonds or cracks or zombies or mad youth who can do anything and everything with gadgets, with technology, with science, but they cannot go in the right direction. As Gandhiji said, running very fast in the wrong direction is what is happening today, which is not called actually development, but it's being called development. So now why I'm bringing out all these issues is that the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a clear-cut order of convocation address, which is given to the students who leave the Vedic education institutions when they finish their education and go. I'm heartened to inform you that what I'm going to read now to you and explain to you is the convocation address of the ancient India, which is copied and incorporated into the IIIT Hyderabad convocation today for many years. And my son graduated from there with a postgraduate degree. He also went through that process. They actually read out the same Taittiriya Upanishad Sikshavalli convocation address, and they also give a printed booklet with translation. And they ask all the students, both men and women, to wear the traditional Indian attire, the dhoti and kurta and sari and so on. And they have abandoned the British type of gown kind of approach. And though they are in the forefront of technology, they have really done a great service to ancient Indian culture by adopting the ancient Indian convocation address, which I'm going to read you today now. Veda Manasucharyo Antervasanam Anushasti. So, after finishing the entire education, having taught the Vedas, the preceptor imparts this post-instruction to the student. That means instruction is completed, the students are leaving, that is the convocation. So now, the first instruction, Satyam Vada, speak truth, Dharmam Chara, follow Dharma, do righteous behavior, and Dharma is of course a very vast subject, but at minimum you can say virtue and righteous behavior. Swadhyayan Ma Pramada, and don't stop studying both normal subjects as well as spiritual subjects. Swadhyaya. Acharyaya Prem Dharmahricha Prajatantum Ma Vyavachetsi. Having given due respectful presents or money to the teacher, because they were not charging fees like today. You have to pay huge fees like this, otherwise you're not allowed inside. It's not like that. They finished the education and they are supposed to give something to the teacher. And he's saying you give them plenty. And more importantly, he said, you shall not stop the lineage. That means you shall marry and procreate the children, progeny. So even that order is being given. That means this is called Snatakam. Please mute your mics. Snatakam or convocation. After that, there will be marriage. If you know, in all marriage rituals, Snatakam comes first before actual marriage. So that is the Snataka Upanyasa or Snataka address which is being given here. Sachanna Pramaditavyam. Let you not be ever complacent about truth. That means you shall adhere to truth at any cost. Dharmanna Pramaditavyam. You shall not be complacent or deviate from Dharma at any cost, anytime. You shall adhere to Dharma to the maximum extent. Kushalanna Pramaditavyam. And similarly, welfare. You shall not allow welfare to be disturbed. Peace and happiness and progress and welfare shall be maintained. Bhutyaina Pramaditavyam. You shall not deviate from progress. That is, there should be no deviation from righteous activity, no deviation for protection of yourself, no neglection of propitious activities, good activities. Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramaditavyam. You shall not be complacent or lazy or forgetful about learning and teaching. Please note this, such an importance given to the fact that you learn all your life, lifelong learning, and you should also teach. Because if you just learn and don't teach, you are committing a crime against the society which requires your knowledge to be disseminated. Why am I teaching, or why all teachers are teaching? It's their duty to teach what they know. First, they should know, they should learn new things, and they should teach new things. So this is the education system which we know: knowledge management, internalization of knowledge, externalization of knowledge, and socialization of knowledge. This is called knowledge management. I wrote a book of that. Deva Pitrukarya Bhyam na Pramaditavyam. You shall not be complacent or lazy about all the Devakaryas. Devakaryas means festival activities with deities involved, like Ganesh Chaturthi or whatever, or Deepavali, and also the Vratams and Satyanarayana Vratam and so on, various Daiva Karyam, as you know, various divine rituals. And similarly, Pitru Karyam also you shall not be complacent. That means performing the annual rituals of the dead souls of the mother, father, grandfather, whatever it is. Pitru Karyam is also equally important. And Matru Devo Bhava, this is a very famous statement. How you should be treating your Hello, please mute your mics. Hello, mute your mic. Matru Devo Bhava, that is, you shall be treating your mother as a deity. You shall be treating your mother as a deity. Pitru Devo Bhava, father as a deity. First is mother, then we know these very famous statements, but we never knew from where these things came. So they came from the Shikshavalli of the Taittiriya Upanishad. Acharya Devo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava. These four statements, the teacher and the guest, all are to be deified. They need to be worshipped. They have to be respected to the maximum. Nowadays, the students don't respect. You know very well, the present day youth have least respect for mother, least respect for father, least respect for teachers, and not to speak of guests. So, Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava. These four fundamental orders are coming from the convocation address given in the Shikshavalli of the Taittiriya Upanishad. And then Yan Yanavajjani Karmani Tani Sevitavyani No Itarani. You shall follow only the role model behavior and nothing else. The works that are blameworthy are not to be resorted to. Those actions of ours that are commendable are to be followed by you, not the others. I mean, the youth are not allowed to do whatever they like. They will be told, you shall do this way, like Rama, or like so and so. These are the role models. You shall behave in this way only, not in any other way. Because if you leave it open for any other way, then people will do anything else and anything can happen. And then similarly, what are the other orders? Yan yasmakam sucharitani tani tasyopatani upasyani. Whatever are good character role models, only those should be adopted and those should be emulated or followed. No itarani, no others, no random behavior, no zombie behavior, and no licentious behavior and promiscuous behavior. Yeke cha asmat shreyasa brahmana tesham Tvaya asanena prashvastavyam shraddhayadeyam ashraddhayadeyam shriyadeyam vriyadeyam dhiyadeyam samvidadeyam athayadi karma vijayikutsava vrittavichikutsava syat te tatra brahmana samarshataha yukta ayukta aluksha dharma kama. So I'll read out the English translation as given by Adi Shankaracharya itself. There should be no error in the duties towards the gods and mains. Let your mother be a goddess to you. Let your father be a god unto you. Let your teacher be a god unto you. Let your guest be a god to you. The works that are not blameworthy are to be resorted, not the others. Not blameworthy. Those actions of ours that are commendable are to be followed by you and not others. You should, by offering seats, remove the fatigue of those brahmanas who are more praiseworthy among us. An offering should be made with honor. An offering should be made with not with dishonor. The offering should be made according to one's prosperity. The offering should be made with modesty. The offering should be made with awe. The offering should be made in a friendly way. Sriyadeyam, Riyadeyam, Priyadeyam, Samvidadeyam. Offering should be made with wisdom and knowledge. Then you should have any doubt with regard to duties or customs. Because during your whole life, because this convocation address is fit for the whole life. So he is telling whenever you have any doubts regarding your duty or custom at any point of time, you should behave in those matters just as the Brahmanas do, Brahmajanis do, who may happen to be there around you, who are able to deliberate, who are adepts in those duties and customs, who are not directed by others, who are independent and who are not cruel, and who are desirous of merit. Please mute your mics. Please mute your mics. And then as far as accused people, you should behave with regard to them just as Brahmanas do. That means the criminals. who may happen to be there and who are able deliberators. You should not do whatever you like. What the Brahmajanis, Brahmanas are doing, that you should do. Role model. That's what in Bhagavad Gita also Lord Krishna says, Yad acharati shreshthas tattadeva itaro janaha sayat pravanam gurte lokastad anuvartate. Who are adepts in those duties and customs, who are not directed by others, who are not cruel and who are not desirous of merit. This is the injunction. Yesha adeshaha, yesha upadeshaha, yesha vedopanishad. This is Veda and this is Upanishad. This is divine behest. And all this is to be done thus, and this must be done only thus. So this is the convocation address, and I am skipping a lot of question answers which debates of Adi Shankaracharya did in his Taittiriya Upanishad commentary, because the Upanishad is very big and it is 200 pages. I am only focusing on the essential parts. Three parts are total is 3 parts. The first part is this, the education system and the convocation address. Apart from the knowledge and the wisdom acquired through the Vedas and Upanishads and the Shruti, Smriti, Dharma Shastra, Purana, Itihasa, all the 18 Vidyasthanas they had. The moral behavior, ethical character behavior is being impressed upon through this convocation address in the Taittiriya Upanishad. This is what I wanted to bring to your notice. The second thing is the Ananda. So before going to Ananda, here there are statements which are pertaining to the creation process. Tasmad atmanha akash sambhutaha akashad vayuh vayoragnihi agnerapah abja prithvi prithivyadanam annad bhutani. So from subtle to gross, if you look at the Maheshwar Sutras of Panini, we have Ayundrulu Kevongayo Chavaratnanam Javangadis Javagadis Kapajado Kapais Seshasar Hal. That is, you say Hayavara La. That is the sequence. Hayavarat Lan. Last Hayavara La. That is the sequence in which creation took place. Ha is Akasha, Akasha Vayu, Ya is Vayu, Vayu Ragni, Ra is Agni, Agna Rapaha, La is the Apa, and finally Va. Hayavarat Lan. That is La is Prithvi. So the grossest Prithvi comes last. And this is the cosmic creation sequence. Satyam Jnanamanantam Brahma. The most profound definitions of Brahman are given in the Taittiriya Upanishad, ascribed to Prabhu. And direct conversation of Prabhu with Varuna, his father, will come now later. So, what is Brahman? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Now, a lot of people fight on what is God and all without knowing what is the definition. So, here is the definition: Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Truth, infinite, and wisdom, knowledge. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Yode Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. So Ashrute Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipasteti. The knower of Brahman attains the highest. Why? Because the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. Here is what's uttering that very fact. Brahman is truth, knowledge, and infinite. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. He who knows that Brahman as existing in the intellect, which is lodged in the supreme space of the heart. Nihito Guhayam Parame Vyoman. You look at this wording, the cave in the space of the heart enjoys an identification with all-knowing Brahman, all desirable things simultaneously. So Brahmavida, Brahmaiva Bhavati, Brahmavidapnoti Param. Moment you realize oneness with Brahman, which is Advaita, then you have achieved completeness, total, all things simultaneously. From that Brahman indeed, which is the self, was produced Akasha. From Akasha emerged Vayu. From Vayu emerged Agni. From Agni emerged Apa. From Apa emerged Earth. From Earth we are born as herbs, various herbs and plants. And from the herbs were produced food, and from food born man. That man, such as he, is surely a product of the essence of food. Of him this indeed is the head. This is the southern right, and so on. So this is the statement in the second chapter and the first. This is the cosmology, the sequence of creation, how it came out, and most profound definitions of Brahman, which came later again and again in the commentaries of Shankaracharya and the Upanishads. There are huge commentaries 200 pages on this Upanishad. And with the objections raising, I request all of you to procure this book and read in the Ramakrishna Math, the detailed analysis of objections and answers, defense and offense from the critics against Shankaracharya. Now, this is about the cosmology, but when we go further, you will find. Now, I'll read out chapter 3 of part 2. Pranam deva anuprananti manushya pashavasche prano hi bhutanam ayuhu tasmat sarvayasha muchyate. Now, prana is being discussed. Anna is already finished in the previous. Sarvameva tu ayuryanti ye pranam brahmopasate prano hi bhutanam ayuhu tasmat sarvayasha muchyate iti. Tasyesh eva sharira atma ya purvasya tasmadva etasmat प्राणमयात् अन्योन्य आत्मा मनोमयः तेनेश पूर्णः सवायेश पुरुषविधयेश तस्य पुरुषविधताम् अन्वयं पुरुषविधः तस्य यजुरेव शिरः दक्षिणपक्षः सामोत्तरपक्षः आदेश आत्मा अथर्वाङ्गिरस पृच्छं प्रतिष्ठा तदप्येष श्लोको भवति. The senses act by following the vital force in the mouth. We know we have the prana, which is the vital force. All human beings and animals that are there are act similarly. Since on the vital force prana depends the life of all creatures, and therefore it is called life of all. Those who worship the vital force as Brahman attain the full span of life. Pranopasana. Prana upasana is nothing but pranayama, yoga abhyasa. That those who perform pranayama yoga abhyasa, they will live complete life without diseases and death in between. Since on the vital force depends on all life, and it is called life of all. Prano hi bhutanam ayuhu. Of the preceding. So this is the, I was talking about 5 levels. We'll again come in the third part when Prabhu goes and asks Varuna, what is Brahman? What is that from which everything comes? And what is that from by which everything is sustained? And what is that into which everything dissolves? Then the same 5 levels are going to be discovered at that time. But now we are explaining what is food, what is prana, annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya, anandamaya, koshas will come later. But now look at the profound statements. Now there are a lot of thousands of years of debate and discussion on what is the nature of God, nature of Brahman, nature of absolute reality, nature of the ultimate truth. The ultimate pursuit of all philosophy is the ultimate truth. What is it? Now, the answer is here. Yato vacho nivartante. It is something from which the words return back. That means words cannot reach. Aprapya manasa saha. Mind also cannot acquire. Anandam brahmano vidwan. The nature of that Brahman or absolute reality, truth, is ananda. Na vibheti kadachaneti. Tasyesha esha sharira atma yah purvasya tasmadva etasman manomaya anyantara atma vijnanamaya. Now, manomaya atma has been discussed. We have discussed about annamaya, pranamaya and manomaya. Now, the fear comes to anyone, mainly the fear of death and fear of losing power, fear of losing money, fear of losing power, fear of losing health, happiness. So all this is coming because you have not reached the enlightenment of self-realization, God realization, Brahmi Sthiti. If you have reached that, then you will not have any fear. Na vibheti kadachaneti. Who will not have any fear? Only who has realized the self. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Anandam brahmano vidwan na vibheti kadachaneti. Vidwan, the scholar like you and me, when he reaches the complete enlightenment, complete understanding of Brahman, the Ananda, Satchidananda, Satchit and Ananda. These are the 3 words used for definition of Brahman. I will deviate a little bit into physics to explain what is Sat, then into psychology and what is Chit, and into Ananda, which we'll be discussing in Anandavalli, which is a part of Taittiriya Upanishad. The Sat, if you look at Sat, the word Sat means what is existence. So if you ask what is real existence, then in classical physics, Newtonian physics, we have the matter, energy, space, and time as four fundamental entities of existence. Now, in the modern physics, in the relativistic quantum dynamics and quantum relativistic physics, space and time disappear as absolute entities. They are relative, because if you travel at velocity of light, then your space is zero and your time is zero. That is the factor given by root of 1 minus v square by c square. With that, the time will dilate and space will dilate, and they will become zero if v is equal to c. C is velocity of light, 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meters per second, 186,000 miles per second. So space and time don't have absolute reality, and what remains only matter and energy as absolute substances of existence. And with the general theory of relativity, of course, what I quoted you as root of 1 minus v square by c square is a factor of dilation or reduction of space and time in the special theory of relativity of Einstein. In meter miles, whereas in the general theory of relativity, E is equal to mc square, the energy and matter are interconvertible. So what is the absolute truth and absolute reality? That is some x, which is either matter or energy, because both are getting interconvertible. In the atom bomb, matter gets converted to energy. In cosmic rays, energy gets converted to matter. So there is some x which is becoming matter or energy. And how do you say it is matter or energy? It depends on your observation. Because if you observe light through photoelectric effect, you'll see it as particles, photons. If you observe electrons through electron diffraction experiment, you'll see a diffraction pattern as waves. So electrons are particles as well as waves. Photons are particles as well as light. So every particle is also a wave. The de Broglie wave, lambda is equal to h by mv. H is the Planck's constant. M is the mass of the particle. V is the velocity. That means the momentum. H by momentum is the wavelength of that particle. It's amazing. The dual nature of matter and energy. E is equal to mc square. Energy and matter are same. So philosophically, what is that? Finally, behind matter and energy, if you ask, there is some x which we call it sat, which becomes matter or energy depending on how you observe it, depending on your observer. So now we are coming to the observer as the consciousness, chit, which is fundamental, as fundamental or if not more fundamental than sat. Because if the chit is not there, there cannot be any knowledge about sat, whether it exists or not. So sat, chit are compulsory. Ananda is the bliss, which will be explained in Taittiriya Upanishad as we go by further. Now, Vijnanam, now we have covered Manomaya and Vijnanamaya. So he has now gone to the higher intellectual or discovery level of creativity, level of intellectual activity. He is distinguishing between the lower activity of the mind and the higher activity of Vijnana, that is discovery, wisdom, deeper knowledge, and even practicing of knowledge. Vijnanam yajnam tanute, karmani tanute apicha, Vijnanam devas sarve, brahma jeshtham upasate, Vijnanam brahma ched veda, tasmat chenna pramadjati, sarire papno hitva, sarvan kaman ashnutaiti. तस्येष शरीर आत्मा यः पूर्वस्य तस्माद्वा एतस्माद् विज्ञानमयात् अन्योन्तर आत्मा आनंदमयः. So Vijnanamaya level of the self is being explained. Knowledge actualizes, please mute your mics. Knowledge actualizes yajna and it executes its duties as well as all gods meditate on the first born Brahman conditioned by knowledge. If one knows the knowledge Brahman and one does not err about it, one abandons all sins in the body and fully. Of that preceding mental one is the cognitive one, the very embodied self as compared with the cognitive body. Now we know we have these 5 bodies, the physical body which you can see and feel and it survives on food. Then we have the pranic body, the aura, or what is called the, we can see it in the Kilian photography, the aura around the physical body, pranic body it is called. And then we have the mental body in which we operate every day, we talk, we send messages, we speak and hear and read. And then there's a higher mind, which is intellectual or scientific or Vijnanamaya Kosha, discovery, ability, creativity body. And then beyond that is Anandamaya Kosha, which is bliss body. Now, Ananda Atma, he says. What is Ananda? We all know, I'm sure you experienced what is Ananda. Like, for example, when you come to know that you got a son, you'll get tremendous Ananda. Or when you say when you got a promotion, or when you got a particular award, or when you listen to a particular music, or when you hear to a particular speech, or when you see your close relative after a long time, the Ananda, bliss. So that Ananda level also has to be recognized. Ananda Atma Brahmapucham Pratishtha Datasyesh Sloko Bhavati. Now we go further into Taittiriya Upanishad. Asannevacha Bhavati Asat Brahmeti Ched Asti Brahmeti Ched Veda Santamayanam Tato Viduriti Tasyesh Eva Sharira Atma Yapurvasya Adha Anuprashna Utad Vidvanum Lokam Precha Kaschana Gachati Aho Vidvanam Amum Lokam Precha Kaschina Shruta. So Akamayata. Now I will come to the first part. If anyone knows Brahman as non-existing, he himself becomes non-existent. Now this is a very interesting statement. This Brahman, can somebody say, does not exist? Because if you say it does not exist, then you also don't exist. Can you say I don't exist? If you say I don't exist, I'll ask a question. Who is saying that I don't exist? You cannot say I don't exist. Because you are saying that the fact that you say itself is a proof that you exist. So when you exist, then Brahman also exists. If anyone knows that Brahman does not exist, then they consider him as existing by virtue of that knowledge that I exist. Of that preceding cognitive one, this is one embodied self. Now, the creation process, so akamayata, bahusyam prajayayati, the Brahman, though it is one, it has multiplied itself into many. Satapotapyata, satapastapva, idam sarvam asrujata, the entire creation it created. It means what they call creator, God. And some people call it Allah, some people call it Ishwar, some people call it Vishnu, some people call it Narayana, some people call it something else. But these are the core descriptions in the Shruti. From this description came out various theologies and various ideologies and various religious frameworks, including Indian and non-Indian. So akamayata bahusyam prajayayeti satapotapyata satapastapva idam sarvam asrujata yadivam kincham tat srishtva tadeva anupravishat. Having created, he penetrated, he entered into his whatever he created. So everything which you see is sarvam khalvidam brahma. That is one of the Mahavaikyas. Vijnanam cha avijnanam cha satyam cha anrutam cha satyam abhavat yadidam kincha tat satyam chakshate tadyepashe shloka. Now you see, he created both truth and untruth. Now, how is it possible? Because if you look at the potter and pot, pot is made up of mud. All pots of different shapes, like all jewelry of different types and shapes, are made with the same gold by the creator of the ornaments. So the upadana karana and material cause, these are all discussed in detail in various books and various analysis, Brahma Sutra Bhashyas and Upanishad Bhashyas, because I wanted to cover everything in one session. I will not go into various hair-splitting arguments on the nature of relationship between the object of instance, the material cause, and the causal cause, that is from which this came. So this is a very, very, very deep in Vedanta, Vaiseshikas and Vedantics. And within Vedanta, of course, we are following only Adi Shankaracharya commentary. But if you look at the commentary of Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, and 25 other acharyas, you will find slightly different interpretation for the same statements of the Upanishad. The Upanishad is Shruti, it is part of the Veda. It is the ultimate authority. These words which I have read out for you, they are the ultimate authority. They have been interpreted multifariously for centuries and centuries by scholars and swamis and gurus and acharyas. 25 siddhantas have been generated by 25 different acharyas, starting with Shankaracharya Siddhanta, we have 25 of them, including Shuddha Advaita, Visishta Advaita, 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 whatnot, and Dvaita, and so on. I respect all the Acharyas. Endaro Mahan Bhavan, Andariki Vandanamu. I'm not here to comment anybody is superior or anybody is inferior. Of course, Adi Shankaracharya was the first in this sequence. Before him, there were no commentaries, only Shruti existed. Of course, Mandukya Karika was by Gaudapada. But for all the Upanishads, all the 11 Upanishads, principal Upanishads, no commentaries were there before Adi Shankaracharya. And after him, a lot of Acharyas wrote commentaries to Upanishads. And they also wrote to Bhagavad Gita, which is a derived text from the Upanishads and much simpler and down to earth to the common people. And of course, the Brahma Sutras, which are the ultimate polemics of Vedanta. So these three texts are the Prasthanatraya, the core text of Vedanta Darshana, and all the 25 Siddhantas have been formulated and projected by the great intellectuals, the great Acharyas over the centuries. Now coming to a few dates, Adi Shankaracharya date is normally given in the textbooks as 800 AD, which is wrong, because by 800 AD we had Christianity and Islam in India, and Adi Shankara's life history never explained any such encounters with Muslims or Christians to him. And by the family tree given in the various Shankar Mats, I went to all the Shankar Mats, Kanchi, Puri, Sringeri, I went to Dwarka also, I went to Badrinath also. So wherever you go, they write a family tree from the present Shankaracharya to the previous Shankaracharya to the previous Shankaracharya to the previous Shankaracharya and so on. To the Adi Shankaracharya, it comes to around 499 BC. So which is roughly the date of Buddha given in the textbooks. In fact, Buddha's date has now been revised after a lot of research to 1900 BC period. So there was a complete 1400 years gap between Buddha and Shankaracharya. And again between Shankaracharya and Ramanujacharya, there was a complete 1500 years gap. So we could say that at different points of time, the Acharyas came into existence to cater to the requirements of that time, the social, socio-political and socio-economic and socio-legal, socio-religious circumstances prevailing at that point of time, and therefore they gave different commentaries which are not totally different but slightly different and splitting the hairs, polemics it is called, and most of us will not be able to understand because they are based on extreme logic. I'll give you a simple example. When you take the core principle of Shankaracharya's Advaita Siddhanta is Maya, and he propounded Maya to defeat the nihilism, Sunyavada of the Buddhist. And the Sunyavada of the Buddhists was nihilism. Buddhists were directed materialists. They denied the Vedas and they denied the existence of Brahman or Ishvara or God. And of course, they supported Dharma and Yoga to re-establish the power of the Veda, Shruti, the Samhita and Upanishads together. Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishads, all four together are Shruti. So Adi Shankaracharya propounded the Mayavada, where the indefinability itself was defined as Maya. I'll give you the quotation of Shankaracharya definition of Maya. Sannapi asannapi ubhayatmikano. Satnapi asatnapi ubhayatmikano. It is neither existing nor non-existing, nor it is existing, non-existing simultaneously. Bhinnapi abhinnapi ubhayatmikano. Maya is not different from Brahman, not same as Brahman, and it is not both same and different. Sangapi anangapi ubhayatmikano. Maya is not single. Maya is not complex with many components, nor it is both single and complex. Then what the hell it is? Mahadbhuta, most wonderful, Anirvachaniya, undefinable Maya. So undefinability is being defined, and undefinability was defined to defeat Sunyavada, nothingness as ultimate truth, nihilism. Now you can understand what kind of logical depths logicians exercises and feats. Shankaracharya was the greatest logician in the entire history, and he propounded Maya to defeat nihilism of the Buddhas, Bauddhas and Jainas, and he defeated all and became therefore the Jagat Guru. And later, hundreds and thousands of years later, various acharyas came who extended, modified, or redefined, or sometimes contradicted what Shankaracharya did. Not 100%, but small percentages maybe 5%, 10%, 15%, not more than that. So, but the core foundation framework remains what is given by Adi Shankaracharya as interpretation of the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita. And that commentary of Shankaracharya is what we are reading. So I don't want to go very deep into this, but I will read out some of the highlights only in the interest of the time of this program today. Asatva idamagra asi tato vai sadajayata tada atmanam swayamakrita tasmat sukrutamuchyata idi. Now these are the profound statements coming out of the enlightened state of Samadhi of the rishis who delivered the Upanishad words. In the beginning of all this was but the unmanifested Brahman. So, in fact, the Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter, Avyakta Vyaktaya Sarva Prabhavanti Aharagame. In the beginning of creation cycle, from the unmanifest Avyakta comes out the manifest universe. Asadva idamagra asi. In fact, there's a Nasadiya Sukta in the Rigveda, Na Sadasi, No Sadasi, Asat and Sat, non-existence and existence. Obviously, before existence shot out from the non-existence, non-existence existed. Tato vai sada ajayata. From that came existence. In the beginning of all this was but the unmanifest Brahman. From that emerged the manifest. That Brahman created itself by itself. That is what it is. Tato vai sadajayata tad atmanam swayam akuruta. He created, he means there is no person there. Brahman created itself. Tasmat sukrutamuchyata iti. From that emerged the manifested, that Brahman created itself. Therefore, it is called a self-creator. Swayambhu. That which is known as self-creator is verily the source of joy. And etad vai tat sukritam raso vai saha. This is one of the most famous quotations of the Taittiriya Upanishad of the Shruti. What is the nature of Brahman? Raso vai saha. It is nothing but ananda, rasa. One becomes happy by coming in contact with that source of joy. Rasa skovayam labdha anandi bhavati. If you are able to contact, get in touch with the Lord, you will become anandi, you will become joyful. Who indeed will inhale and who will exhale? All this is not in the supreme space. Yadesha akasha anando nasya esha kyosha anandayat yada hyavesha etasmin adrishye namye anuripteya nilayane abhayam pratishtham vindade. This one indeed enlightens people, for whomsoever an aspirant gets fearlessly established in this imperceivable, bodiless, inexpressible and unsupporting when he reaches the state of fearlessness. So fearlessness from fear of death, because you will not die. What dies? The body dies, not you, because you are Brahman. You are merged into Brahman. You are Ananda, Satchidananda Swarupa. So there is no fear in it. So for whenever the aspirant creates the slightest difference in it, he is smitten with fear. So if you deviate, in fact, the instruction given to me by my mother, who was my guru at the end, was that never deviate from Brahmi Sthiti. If you are in Brahmi Sthiti, then you are in Ananda, Satchidananda. The moment you deviate, you fall. The moment you fall, you are gone. You are subjected to fear of death, fear of and after that many other problems. Kama, Krodha, Lodh, Mohammed, Mamsaya, Ankar, Mamkar, Raga, Dvesha. So endless hell we get into, which we are already experiencing all day. We have been experiencing every day the endless hell. So that is why this samsara's halahalam, shantyai, the purpose of Vande Guru Paradvandam Avang Manasa Rakta Sukla Prabhamisram Atakyam Vansham Manaha. That is the wisdom, the self-realization, jnana, is meant for reaching a stage of emancipation, moksha, transcendence from this hell of fire of samsara. Samsara, hala hala moha shantyai. And there are thousands of books written on these statements by the acharyas and their disciples, 25 acharyas minimum, 25 Siddhantas. Ishadatma. Now, because of the deviation from the original state, the fear is what makes everything happen. You know why everything happens. You know why a person performs in a private company out of fear of losing job. Similarly, by fear only, everything happens in this world. Whether it is sun or moon or air or air, all are operating based on fear. That's what he's saying. Now coming to the Bhrigu's enlightenment. Now about Ananda, there is before I go to Bhrigu's discovery, there is a whole chapter on Ananda. Now the various levels of Ananda. We have talked about Ananda, Satchidananda, which is Brahmananda, which is the highest of Anandas, which is worth following only that and nothing else. But all other levels above it, in fact, he has below it rather, not above it. We have talked about different levels of Ananda, Manushyananda, then above it is 100 times Manushyananda is Gandharvananda, Manushya Gandharvananda, 100 times that is Devananda, Deva Gandharvananda, and so on. Pitrananda, and so on. And finally, you will get Brahmananda, which is highest, which we have talked about. And we shall spend a few minutes on the Ananda Valli, which is the chapter on Taittiriya Upanishad about Ananda itself. We have already covered the nature of Brahman as Ananda, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Satchidananda, and all are coming out of the fear. That means deviation from Ananda. The Ananda of a big emperor or a big Maharaja or a emperor who is all powerful. I know what it means to a little bit extent because I have gone through the power structure in the government organization of IT and National Informatics Center. I have spent about 30 years starting from lower ranks. I kept on growing higher and higher, and at the end I came to the highest level for a very short period, Director General. Out of 30 years, my status as Director General was very short period, but I know what it means. 20,000 people reporting to me and my signature having power of thousands, if not hundreds, thousands of crores. And so much of power you enjoy. Of course, it will be short-lived. After that, you have to come out. Now, you can imagine what will be the power of an emperor, a global emperor, like somebody like Rama or Yudhishthira, or even modern times Alexander or Ashoka. What will be his power? And what will be the Ananda which he enjoys out of that power? Ahankara, of course, power is Ahankara. But that particular level, if you take, that you can take as one unit. Manushyananda. That is what he is telling. Now we'll talk about Ananda Mimamsa, the analysis of Ananda. You are being very youthful. Of course, if you are an old man and suffering with diseases and weakness, and you will not have that Ananda. You have to be young. Yuva Syat, Sadhu Yuva Syat, Adhyayaka, Asishto, Dridhishto, Varishtaha. He is strong and he is fully in control, full swing. Tasyesha Prithvi Sarvam Nityasya Purnam Syat. Sa Eko Manushyananda. The whole earth is under his control. He is young, he is powerful, he is full-fledged spirit of his energy levels. And that person's Ananda is one unit. The maximum human Ananda, if you take. The maximum units, we talk of units, right? If you take that as one unit. Teye Shatam Manusha Ananda Sa Eko Manushya Gandharvananda. Manushya Gandharva. That means, we have the top musicians. who go into raptures and make the audience go into raptures. So they'll be going into trance. They'll be enjoying so much. 100 times more than this king or emperor. Manushya Gandharva. Sa eko Manushya Gandharva tam anandaha. Shrotriyasya chakam hadasya. Te shatam Manushya Gandharva anandaha. Sa eko Deva Gandharva anandaha. Of course, these are all humans. Then there is a different realm of Devas and Deva Gandharvas. So Deva Gandharvas will be 100 times this Manushya Gandharva. Shrotriyasya cha akamahatasya teche shatam Deva Gandharva anandaha sa ekah pitrunam chiraloka lokanam anandaha. And then there is a Pitruloka, and that Pitruloka ananda is 100 times that. Teye shatam pitrunam chiraloka ananda sa ekah Ajananam Devanam Anandaha. Then there is Devaloka, which is higher than Deva Gandharvas. That is, apart from human Gandharvas, there are other Gandharvas, real Gandharvas. So that they are called Deva Gandharvas, and beyond Deva Gandharvas are Devas. You know, we have this entire list of beings. Manava is the lowest. Why Ravana, didn't, why Ramatara came, you all know. Because Ravana was not given an exemption of death from humans only. He got exemption of death from all other beings above humans. Gandharva, Yaksha, Kinnara, Kimpurusha, Siddha, Charana, Nityadhara, and of course Rakshasa. So all these different beings, they are not species of humans. They are beings beyond humans, whom we cannot see, whom we cannot get in touch with. They may be extraterrestrial beings, but they are described extensively in the Puranas, in the Mahabharata, in Ramayana, everywhere. So now this Ananda levels of those beings is taught. Pitru Devadas, Gandharvas, Devas, and Karma Devas. Sayeka Karma Devanamanda, Ye Karmana Devanam, the Sotriya Ye Shatam Karma Devanam, Devanam Sayeko Devanam Ananda. Then the 100 times Karma Deva Ananda is one Devananda. A lot of people keep saying Devanam without knowing what it is. Now you can imagine the scale of Ananda of Devananda, which is 100 times. Finally, I think it will be some million or billion times. Human Ananda. Srotriya Secha Akamahatasya. Te ye shatam Devanam Ananda. Sayeka Indrasya Ananda. 100 times Devas Anandas is Indra Ananda. Indra, who is the head of the Devas. Srotriya Secha Akamahatasya. Te ye shatam Indrasya Ananda. Sayeko Bruhaspati is 100 times Indra's Ananda. Srotriyasya cha akamahatasya. Te ye shatam Bruhaspate Ananda. Sayeka Prajapate Ananda. Above Bruhaspati is Prajapati. Te shatam Prajapate Ananda. Sayeko Brahmana Ananda. Brahma is above Prajapati. So that is Brahmananda. We have written a lot of times Brahmananda, Brahmanandam, Paramasukadam, Kevalam, Jnanamurtim. Bandvatītam gagana sadrisham tattvamasyaadilaksham ekam nityam vimalamachalam sarvadhi sakshutam bhavatītam trigunarahitam satguntam navami. We have people keeping the name Brahmananda without knowing what it is. Now we got an idea of what is Brahmananda. I'll read out Shankaracharya's commentary translation for this. Suppose there is a young man in the prime of life, good, learned, most expeditious, most strongly built, and most energetic. Suppose there lies this earth for him filled with wealth, and he owns all this. This will be one unit of one human joy, Ananda. If this human joy can be multiplied 100 times, it is one joy of the man, Manushya Gandharvas, and so also of a follower of the Vedas, unaffected by it. Now, you might have noticed with all these levels, please mute your mics. All these different levels, he kept on saying, Shrotriyasya cha akamahatasya cha. You might be wondering why I skipped all that. Now I'll explain. In all these levels, a person who is Shrotriya, Brahmajnani, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam, that is the definition of a guru, and Akamahatasya, who has no desires, he is also at that level, in each of these levels. So that Mana Gandharvas multiplied 100 times is one divine Gandharva. Gandharva, and also the follower of Shruti, unaffected by desire. If the joy of the divine Gandharvas is increased hundredfold, it is one joy of the mates or Pitrus, whose world is everlasting, and so of a follower of the Vedas untouched by the desire. If the joy of the mains that dwell in the everlasting world be increased hundredfold, it is one joy of those that are born as gods in heaven. And so as the followers of the Vedas untouched by the desires, if the joy of those that are born as gods in heaven multiplied 100 times, it is one joy of the called Karma Devas, and Karma Devas and Devas, and then Indra, and then Brahaspati, and then Prajapati, and then Brahma. You just multiply 100, 100, 100, see the huge figure you will get. So this is the Anandavalli. So from fear to Ananda, that is the journey we have to take, and that is what is explained here. Sayaschayam purushe yascha savaditye sa ekaha. So these are the most profound statements talked about the nature of God, nature of Brahman. Sa ekaha is only one. That itself is enough proof that it is Advaita. Sa evam vid asman lokan precha etasman. He that is here in the human person and he that is there in the sun are one. So whatever is there in the sun and whatever is there in the human, the self, is only one. He who knows thus attains, after desisting from this world, this self made of food attains this self made of prana, this attains this self made of mind. These 5 levels you will be crossing. Now for that point, we will go to the last chapter of the Taittiriya Upanishad, where Prabhu finally went and asked his father Varuna, what is Brahman? Brahman by definition, as given in the Brahma Sutras also, Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena bhutani jayante jivanti yasmin pravishanti tat brahma janmadhyasya yataha is the first Brahma Sutra. Prabhu Varunihi, he is the son of Varuna, and Prabhu's son is Shukracharya, who is the guru of the Asuras, who lived in Iran, Iraq, and Mesopotamia, and Babylonia, and so on. They call themselves Asura. Asurbanipal is the king of Assyrians, and Ahura Mazda is the god of Persians. The Pragurvai Varunihi, Varunam Pitaram Upasasara. So he approached his father. Adhihi Bhagavo Brahmeti Tasmat Etat Provacha Annam Pranam Chakshusrotram Mano Vachapiti Tahavo Vache Tova Imani Bhutani Jayante. So Prabhu went to his father. Normally, mother is the first guru for any child, and father is the next guru before the Acharya comes. So in the case of Prabhu and many people, the father himself is Acharya also, in addition to being father. So he went to Varuna and asked him, what is Brahman? Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yasmin pravishanti tad brahma. Tad vijaniyat tad brahmeti satapostapyata. So Varuna told him, you find it out. Varuna is not a person who will just give ready-made answers to Prabhu, his son. Like, if you tell in the class, this is the answer for this question, it will be a total flop show because the students will never be able to reach that answer on their own. So the correct teacher, what he will do is to go through the process of discovery. So I teach in my classes, whenever I give lectures, take students through a process of discovery. I ask questions. What is this? What is this? What is this? If the questions are powerful, then the answers will also be equally powerful. Otherwise, it will be a flop show. So similarly, Varuna did not give any answer to Prabhu. He said, you go and perform tapas. That means you go and meditate. You go and investigate. You go and contemplate. You go and think. You go and find out yourself. What is Brahman? What is that from which everything is born? What is that by which everything is sustained? And what is that into which everything gets dissolved? So Prabhu went satapotapyata satapastapva. Now he performed tapasya, that means he performed meditation, contemplation, deep analysis. He worked on it, he slept on it, he thought about it, he investigated it, he contemplated it, he meditated it, and finally he concluded Annam Brahmeti Vijaniyat Annadvaye Sarvan Vimani Bhutani Jayante. Food. Anna is the Brahman, he says. Because of food only, all beings, all living beings are being created. Otherwise, if there is no food, there is no living being possible. Annayana Jatani Jivanti. They are able to live after having been created, they are able to survive, sustain only because of food. Annam Pratya Abhisantiti Tad Vijnaya Punareva Varunam Pitaram Upasara. So he went and told his father, I found the answer. Annam is Brahman. Adhihi Bhagavo Brahmeti Tahavovacha Tapasa Brahma Vijijnasaswa. Again he told, you go and do tapasya. Tapo Brahmeti Satapostapyata Satapastapva. Having performed tapasya once again, that means Annam is Brahman, no doubt, but there is something more. So what is that more? So Prano Brahmeti Vyajanat. Now he came out with an answer. Prana is Brahman, life force. Pranadvahi yesha sakal vimani bhutani jayante. From prana, all these living beings are born, because life, prana means life. Pranena jatani jivante pranam pratyabhi santiti tad vijnaya punareva varnam pitaram upasarve. So he went and told Varna, prana is Brahman. Adhihya bhagavo brahmeti uvacha tapasa brahma vijijnasasva. Varna again said, go and again do tapasya. Concentration, meditation, contemplation. Tapo brahmeti satapastapva satapotapyata satapastapva mano brahmeti vyajana. Now third answer he got, manas, mind is Brahman. Because everything is in the mind. Manaso esha kal vimani bhutani jayante. Everything gets created in the mind. Manasa jatani jivante. Manah prayatyahi samvishantiti tad vijnaya punareva varunam pitaram upasasara. Adhi bhagavo brahmeti tahovacha tapasa brahma vijijnasasva. Now this third round, Manas, again the fourth round is given as the order. So he went again into the fourth round. Vijnanam brahmeti vijaniya yajanat. Vijnana, higher mind, higher intellectual mind is the Brahman, because everything comes out of it. All poetry, all prose, all theories, all stories, all books come out of the intellect. Vijnanat yesha sarv khal vimani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yasmin pravishante vijnanam pratyabhisamsanti tad vijnaya punareva varunam pitaram upasasara. Upasasara adhihi bhagavo brahmeti tahovacha tapasa brahma. Again he said, go and do tapasya. Tapasa brahma vijñāsasva tapo brahmedi sa tapo tapyata sa tapastapva iti. Now he came back with anando brahmeti vijaniyat. We have seen in the previous chapters that ananda is the ultimate truth. Ananda vyeva sakal vimani bhutani jayante anandeva jatani jivanti anandena jatani jivanti anandam प्रयत्याभि संविशन्तीति स एषा भार्गवी वारुणी विद्या परमे व्योमन् प्रतिष्ठिता. So as we have analyzed in the last chapter, through a self-discovery process in stages, phase-wise, in step-by-step manner, Prabhu reached the same answer as Anandam Brahmet Vijaniya, Satchidanandam, Sarv, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Anandam is the nature of Brahman, or God, or Ishvara, or Bhagavan. Sa evam Veda Pratitishtanti Annavānannādo bhavati Mahan bhavati prajaya Pashubhir Brahmavachasena Mahan Kirtya iti Sashtonuvaka. He knew bliss is Brahman. From bliss, indeed, all beings originate, having been born, they are sustained by bliss. In fact, when Ramakrishna Paramahamsa entered difficult samadhi, he experienced just nothing but Ananda, bliss. And he found everything came out from bliss. The entire creation came out from bliss and went back into bliss. And it sustains. This knowledge is realized by Prabhu and imparted by Varuna. Starts from food and mind and so on, prana and so on, and terminates in the supreme bliss, established in the cavity of the heart. Nihito, where is this bliss? It is inside your heart, in the cavity of the heart. Nihito guhayam parame vyoman. Anandam pratyesha bhargavi varuni vidya parame vyoman pratisthita. It is inside your heart. He who knows thus becomes firmly established. He becomes the possessor of food and eater of food, and he becomes great in progeny, cattle and luster of holiness, and great in glory. Ultimately, we want glory. And who will get glory? Who has reached Ananda in his own heart. Thus becoming pure in mind through concentration and failing to find the definition of Brahman in its fullness, in the selves composed of the food and vital force, etc. Prabhu penetrated inside by degrees. Body and inside the body, mind, and inside body, prana, inside prana is mind, and inside mind is vijnana, and inside vijnana is ananda. Penetrated inside by degrees, and with the help of concentration alone, that is yogic samadhi, he realized the innermost bliss, that is Brahman. Therefore, the idea conveyed by this topic is that anyone who is desirous of knowing Brahman should undertake the concentration of the internal and external organs as the most excellent practice of tapa, austerity, and that is what is given in the Yoga Darshana, in the Ashtanga Yoga. So we have completed the last chapter, and I will close now with some of the closing statements. Though I have skipped a lot of things, because if I cover everything, it will take many days, not one day. So I will close with the last part of Bhriguvaldi. Shanti mantra is Sahana Vavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Jao Shanti, Antariksham Shanti, Prithvi Shanti, Apa Shanti, Oshadaya Shanti, Vanaspadaya Shanti, Vishvedeva Shanti, Brahma Shanti, Sarvam Shanti, Shanti Reva Shanti, Sama Shanti Redi. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Yes, now I have closed my lecture. Now I open it for discussion. Feel free to ask any question or any statement or comment.
Thank you so much, Prabhu sir, for showing, I know it was very tough for you to go over such a heavy topic and depth topic, just a high level overview also you could take. And even I thank all the others also, just we went little over, but I wanted to inform that this would take little more time. So with that, I open up for questions. Just in the chat window, you can either type or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions. So just in the typing, in the chat window, I see a question like, why we are using Western type long pronunciations with Ananda we should use a Sanskrit pronunciation Anand or something like that. But I think Anish has
Yeah, I would.
given.
I'll clarify that. Actually, it is not Western type. It is Sanskrit because A is there at the end. If you say Anand, then it is Hindi. It is not Sanskrit. If you say Ananda, then it is Sanskrit. So the
Yeah.
English, so-called English pronunciation is actually Sanskrit pronunciation. If you say Anandam, then it becomes Telugu pronunciation.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Any other question? Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. So, namaste, sir. This is Mridula. As always, it's a joy to listen to your lectures on Upanishads, especially. So, when you started off the Taittiriya Upanishad, you also mentioned that before British invasion, the Vedic knowledge was accessible to everybody, and we all were literates. So, does the history say that? I mean, is it true that there was no discrimination among the communities or castes back then, and absolutely the Vedic knowledge was accessible to everybody, and it passed down either orally? I think that was the mode back then, if I'm not wrong. So was it that? And I have a lot of more questions as well. But yeah, I would like.
Yeah, let us not get into politics. I've already answered this question in my talk. There were two levels of education. One is the Vedic schools, where the person has to stay all his life from the age of 5 up to 25 or so. So only those who went to that were given that. But those who didn't do that, those who were busy with their profession, whether it is agriculture or whether it is something else, they didn't go to Veda Gurukulam and live there for 25 years. They lived in their houses, in the villages, but they attended Vidhi Badi, the village school, where the teacher taught all the essential requirements. Not the entire 25 years of Veda is not possible.
Yeah.
But he taught basics, and that was enough for the professional, vocational process. Whereas those who went for that, again, they were Rama went through that, Krishna went through that, even the some others, apart from the Brahmins. I'm not getting into the caste politics issue. The Brahmins were mandated to do that because they don't have any other profession. Even when Krishna went, he was not as good as Sudama. He himself told Sudama was able to chant very well the Vedas. Krishna was also chanting, but so-so. Krishna was not meant to be a teacher of Vedas. He was meant to rule the world and fight wars. So it was there, but again, the emphasis and the depth is different. Even today, who will do PhD? PhD is done by only those who want to teach or do research. Everybody will not do PhD. I hope you got the answer for that question. Then what's the next question?
Yes. So also, I think the convocation address that you mentioned, there's so many rules and principles when you look at it, our scriptures. So isn't that also, I mean, maybe not the basic rules such as, being honest and, living your life truthfully and non-violence, etc. But there are so many other rules which are kind of like conditioning. Don't you think it kind of conditions your mind? And at the end, again, Upanishads also talk about how we have to kind of let go. It's all about removing those or deconditioning ourselves to again reach that Brahman. So yeah, I just wanted to know your thoughts on that. Or maybe I'm thinking.
No, you see, what you have to realize is when the convocation address is given, that means the student has spent all his youth in the institute and is going into the society. In fact, those gurukulas were usually in the forests. Those ashrams were there in forest, and the parents left the kid at the age of 5. After performing the Upanayanam, the fellow is left there. And he'll be there for 25 years or something like that. And then that is called Snatakam. That's why it is performed just before marriage in every marriage. So then he said, okay, you go now into society. So when he is going into society, obviously he was kind of isolated from society for 25 years or 20 years. So he is not accustomed to the vagaries of the dangers of society outside. Society outside has criminals and has dadas, gundas, and warriors and kings and all kinds of fellows. And inside the Gurukula he is protected. In the ashram he is protected. So he has been told how to behave because he doesn't even know what will happen once it goes out? So speak truth. That is basic characters, the character speak truth and follow virtue and all those things which I told, which are there in the convocation address. Moral, ethical behavior. If you don't do that, then you will also become a gunda once you go out. Today, all the students who come out, they don't have any ethical values, knowledge. They don't even know, let alone follow. A typical youth student doesn't even know why he should not abuse or attack or criticize or harass his own father or mother or teacher, or why he should respect the teacher, why he should respect father. They don't know. Nowadays, youth and students don't respect father or mother, don't respect teachers, don't respect any elders, nothing. They do whatever they like. In fact, when you go to colleges, hardly you will find students being respectful to the teachers who give them lectures. So this is what is very badly missing. And let me tell you, this basic ethical behavior, dharma, is mentioned not on the first time. It is mentioned in this Taittiriya Upanishad in the history of humanity, the ethical behavior. And same thing is mentioned again and again in later periods. It is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned in Ramayana, it is mentioned in Bible, it is mentioned in Quran, it is mentioned in various other orders. We have various other kings and emperors coming from different times and different regions. Same principles will be told: truth, respect, morality, non-violence, so on and so forth. So that became law. What is law? Law is nothing but the same things. Dharma. So that cannot be escaped. What you are referring to is a different thing. If you are going deep into your meditation, you transcend everything. You have nothing to do with society. That is different. But we are talking about society living. Okay, next question.
Yeah, and sorry if I may ask just one more thing. So I was also thinking on the aspect of, from the perspective of karma samskaras, like, there is this, the way we function. Also, there's a deeper conscience, I think, for everybody, like even some people who don't really read about ethics or principles, or even if they're not religious, they do what is right or accepted by the society. And I think it was based on their previous samskaras or whatever, like, and is that also one of the ways to go, or might be into Upanishads or a lot of spiritual practices, rituals, but at the end of the day, the spiritual progress might not be the same as maybe.
That's what I'm saying. Mainly on the upbringing. The previous lives or present life, both?
Yeah, both. Could be both.
The previous lives we don't know, but
yes,
we know present life. It depends on the upbringing by the parents and by the teachers. If the parents are virtuous and if they know what is tapasya, what is dharma, what is satya, what is Veda, then they may upbring their children accordingly. Otherwise, the parents are criminals or gundas and politician type of smugglers and so on. Then the children also become like that. Now you see, most of the children of such people turn out to be vagabonds. They're criminals. They indulge in violence. So upbringing is very important. The samskaras are brought up by upbringing, but both by parents and teacher. Nowadays, no teacher can take responsibility of any child's development. It is because the fellow comes and goes, a commercial activity. It is not like that in ancient times. Teacher take responsibility, like parents take responsibility. So that should come back now. The parents should take responsibility. Teachers should, because teachers themselves don't know these values. See, the nowadays students don't find anything wrong if they copy and get marks, or if they throw money and get seats. Commercial is all fake. Okay, next, anybody else? Hello.
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking on mute. I don't think others have anything. I don't see in the chat window also.
Okay.
Mridula, you are done with your questions, or you have one more? You still seem to be.
yeah. I mean, if the time permits.
Yeah, no, one last question, and I think we can wind up the call.
So there was mention of different types of ananda at the end, I mean, towards the end. Of course, I have not read the scripture. I was just going through the Taittiriya Upanishad notes that you've shared, like very, I think last year or year before. So I've not gone through that text by text, but what you have really explained in very brief words, I think, are we, in our spiritual progress, are we kind of trying to chase this something called as ananda? Or of course, we also experience ananda at different levels in our everyday lives. And that seems to be like we're chasing a certain emotional sensation, and we are not quite sure at what it is yet.
No, I'll answer. Ananda is not an emotional sensation. I know what you're saying. Emotional sensation or sensory sensation, pleasures coming out of it. Pleasure coming out of eating ice cream, pleasure coming out of watching a particular movie, pleasure coming out of listening to a particular music, or even what is called as the maximum pleasure in animalistic level is sex. So with all these are only pleasures. They are not ananda. They are talking of high order ananda. There's a maximum. So they are called sukhas, indriya sukhas, manas sukha. And sukha will also followed by dukkha. The moment you have sukha for some time, immediately you'll get dukkha also. After that, if you suppose eat one ice cream, it will be very sukha, pleasant.
Yes.
If you eat 10 ice cream, then you'll get dukkha immediately. You don't.
Yeah.
Whereas ananda is not like that. Ananda is actually the nature of self, atma ananda. The self is chit, pure consciousness, whose nature is ananda, and same thing is Brahman, because self and Brahman are one and the same. This realization is not there normally. The moment you realize the self, you already realize Brahman also. The moment you realize Brahman, you realize self. Both are same. S capital self and Brahman are one and the same. So that is Brahmananda, that is Chidananda. That is divine, that is God. That is the definition of God.
Where does equanimity stand in this?
Obviously, equanimity is automatically following. See, the moment you might have met some. I have met some seers and yogis and all who have experienced samadhi and all that. So they will be very equanimous. They will be very joyous and also equanimous. They will be like like a child is always joyous. And then they'll be equanimous also. The yogis and realized souls will be equanimous. It automatically come. Because why equanimity? Because he has experienced, enjoyed total freedom, moksha and mokshananda. He's not bothered about something happening in the worldly things up and down. So equanimity to sukha and dukkha, samadukha sukha swastha, samalosthashma to mud and gold, samalosthashma kanchana. So all these descriptions given in the 6th chapter of Yogi, or they given in the Sthita Prajna Lakshana, 2nd chapter in for Sthita Prajna in the Gita, and also the Gunatita in the 14th chapter. So all these descriptions are the indications of a self-realized soul. So that is what we are trying to reach.
Yes.
So jnana mukti. In fact, if you read that commentary by Adi Shankara, I avoided elaborate discussions because Adi Shankaracharya proves that through jnana you get moksha, and moksha is already there. Your moksha is already there. Only the ajnana is the problem. So jnana comes through tapasya, and tapasya means yoga. Yoga and tapasya are one and the same. So okay, that's it. Any other question? Shall we stop?
Yeah, I think yes. We do not have. No. Once again, thank you, Prabhu sir. No, for the session, and all the participants. Just make a note. Every second Saturday, 5 p.m. Block your calendar for it. We will have this entire all the Upanishads coverage every month on a monthly basis. Second Saturday. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.